Thank you for being here today. At this point, I'd like to ask our clerk to call the roll.
Magistrate Lincoln.
Here.
Magistrate Tice.
Here.
Magistrate Harrison.
Here.
Magistrate Greenwell.
Here.
Magistrate Helms.
Here.
Magistrate Hawkins. Here. Magistrate Dye. Here. Magistrate Lofton.
Here.
Judge Vogt.
Here. Having all members of the fiscal court meeting fiscal court present, this meeting is now in session. I'd like to start with just a comment or two before we begin. As everybody knows, we're here today to consider the details of an interlocal agreement between MSD, the Oldham County Environmental District, and Oldham County Fiscal Court. The interlocal agreement fleshes out the points that have been previously approved by MSD, OSEA, and Fiscal Court in the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed in August. The boards of both OSEA and MSD have already approved the interlocal agreement. We're meeting here today in this room rather than our fiscal court chamber in order to facilitate a comfortable discussion among all parties, to clarify points about confusion and answer any questions that the fiscal court members may have for the representatives of MSD. It's my belief that this table sort of equalizes everything. We're here to consider an acquisition, but essentially it's going to be a partnership of sorts. And in the fiscal court chamber, where some parties are elevated and other parties are speaking up to other people, it's not really an opportunity for a good conversation about everybody for everyone to just clarify any points we have, make everybody feel comfortable at ease. We don't have to call one person up to answer a question at the docket, another person to answer a question. Everybody can chip in, chime in, feel free to speak. And I'm hopefully won't have to maintain order among speakers, but we'll all give each other an equal chance to speak. Now, these negotiations have been underway for the better part of a year. And as one individual representing Oldham County Fiscal Court in this discussion, I've found the representatives of MSD to be interested, open, friendly, forthcoming, and responsive to the requests that we have made for this sewer service thus far. In my opinion, this agreement is a significant step forward for both the continued service in our county and cost savings for our rate customers. Here today from MSD are Mr. Tony Parrott, Executive Director. We have Wes Sindor, the Government Relations Director for the MSD. We have Brian Good, Company Treasurer. Brad, I'm sorry. And also Jackie Quarles, representing the Legal Department at MSD. Since this document was presented on Tuesday, there have been a couple of minor word changes adjusted to or that Stan and Mr. Clark have been working on, so I'd like to ask Stan to review those now with everyone here.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. It's pointed out to me I didn't ask everybody to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. We had a,
Public comment. Wait a minute. All right. Now I'm one short here too. We skip public comment. Anybody here would like to make a public comment?
Yeah,
Is
I would. Is there a certain place I go or just talk?
Ask.
Behind the judge.
Okay. Stand right behind me.
Sure. I'm Larry Kaiser, 3000 Maple Leaf Drive, resident of Oldham County. First off, I'd like to thank Magistrate Hawkins for putting a Facebook post about this meeting. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about it to take a vacation day to come at Friday at noon. There wasn't anything on the fiscal court general Facebook page either. Probably didn't make the deadlines for the Oldham Arrow. But anyway, I appreciate you putting that out there to let people know about this. A lot of you maybe assume I'm against this deal, and I'm not. I just have two concerns that I want to make sure are addressed. The first is I just want to make sure that Oldham County is not paying for or subsidizing repairs in Louisville. I know they got a lot of issues, I don't want to say problems, but issues and upgrades like the new Southwest Basin and stuff, and High Creek expansion and things like that. So I just want to make sure that there's a mechanism in place to separate that. An example in my mind, and I don't know if it could occur, but let's say they need to borrow money to improve Oldham County's system, because right now it's going to operate, and the only way to improve it is to raise rates, and people are upset about rates, and that's understandable. But if you have to borrow money to fix it, and the only way to improve the system is to borrow money to invest in it, if MSD were to borrow on existing line of credit some millions of dollars, how does Oldham County know when our portion of that is complete? Because it makes fiscal sense for them to pay off their oldest debts first and their highest debts first. So, and I don't know that that situation could occur. I don't know anything about MST's finances, but I'd like to have that addressed in some way. And then the other thing, it was brought to my attention that there was a difference between memorandum of understanding and now, that if there's a rate increase of 6.9 or less, it's just granted automatically, doesn't have a government vote. But if it were to be 7% or higher, it's a Metro Council vote. Unfortunately, I have the same amount of influence with local Metro Council as I do with some of you in here. But Oldham County would not be able to vote. And so if the agreement as written gives 100% of that control and vote to local Metro Council, who every resident of Oldham County could not pressure them by saying, we'll vote you out if you don't vote how we want. If the agreement's going to allow that, I would strongly encourage that we think of a way that Oldham County Fiscal Court votes on it, and I would say weigh that vote worth 2 Louisville Metro Council votes, and however you all vote, you send that to Louisville Metro Council, and that's included in their vote. So we still have an indirect way to try to control any sort of rate increases. I don't think we should remove Oldham County's voice from that. So those are only 2 concerns I had. I hope maybe through the course of today in this discussion we could address that and make sure that everything works out well for Oldham County. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. So anybody else here would like to address the fiscal court?
I'd like to comment to his comment.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment, and but you'll have a chance during the discussion to address it. Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So since there are no other visitors here other than Mr. Kaiser, we'll go on now with, we've had a motion and a second to enter into this discussion, I believe. No, or is there a motion? Let me put it that way. We didn't do that?
You haven't done it yet.
No, okay. Let's have a motion and a second, get this on the floor, and then we'll have Mr. Clark.
So moved.
Second. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, now, Mr. Clark has got a couple of details that have been, let's say, cleaned up since Tuesday.
Okay. This is continuing with the discussion that we had at fiscal court on Tuesday. And there's been, I handed to you in very yellow, there's been 3 changes to the LA that you've seen. The first is section 9.3. We have strictly, when it talks about missing easements, it originally said MSD may decline to proceed to closing unless we are removing that, thinking that's one of the OSEA's concern they had originally, was that this closing wouldn't occur due to perhaps a missing easement. And so that's, to me, an improvement in our favor. If you turn it over, the body here pretty much raised a lot of concern with the way that section 10.15 was written. And it was written that way to comply with the interlocal agreement and stuff. And so it's been reworded to say very bluntly, or very directly, that OSEA has no employees, and therefore KRS whatever does not apply. And that was in what was sent out last night. The proposal on MSD is now, we're in agreement with it, okay? The final thing is 1017, which our county attorney had a lot of trouble with the way it was worded. This is something that we came up with about 8 p.m. last night. So that's, and John has seen it as when he walked in to this meeting today for the first time. And so I'm just telling you, it's an attempt with an area that he had trouble with the way it was worded to try to come to an agreement concerning condemnation. And it doesn't happen very often, but if it does. And so this is the current agreed thing with the wording. And I'll let John address it now that he's had 10 minutes to look at it.
I think that covers all of my concerns.
Well, I think you're right. As I understood this, it was the MSD and fiscal court were going to agree to do something. It still left some opportunity for fiscal court, even though it agreed to do it, not to do that, but we've taken that out. Right.
Well, the way it
So if
was,
fiscal court agrees to do it, they'll do it. If they don't agree to do it, they won't.
that's correct.
Right. Right.
So,
The ambiguity there was ironed out.
so as of this time, the attorneys for Osceola, White, Tarrant, Combs are in agreement with the way the IOL states. You just heard our county attorney has now come into agreement with all the sections of it. And MSD attorney has come in. So we now have the attorneys all on this page in agreement. So that's where we're at. So now it's time for this one.
Right, and that's, not exactly a rare occurrence, but it,
It's pretty rare.
attorneys agree on it.
Judge, is there any chance we could expedite our actions on this before that condition changes? I mean, it is rare.
Right?
I just don't want them to change their mind in the next 10, 15 minutes when we're debating this. If they're all in agreement, I think they'll do something.
Well, only on those three.
Oh, yeah, that one spot.
Oh, yes, sir.
Just other facts, but I asked, it was requested that Mr. Carter provide a rate analysis, and you want to share, let's look at this piece here first, and have you,
Okay.
and then we also have a couple other pieces.
The page that says rate history analysis, it's got the little boxes. I just gave you a history of where, since 2011, what MSD rates were. If you lived in Jefferson County, this is what you were paying. And then if you lived in Oldham County with an OSEA customer, this is what we were paying. And then I showed also what a 4,000 gallon user bill would look like and what a 5,000 gallon bill per user. Because when we've done rate increases for OSEA, we've always said the average 4,000 gallon customer will pay this. But in this agreement, we've been talking about the 5,000 gallon user paying X. And OSEA's average customer is just under 4,700 gallons. So it's, it just trying to show you what's what. As you can see, basically in the last, from 2011 to current, MSD has raised their rates almost 64%. OSEA has raised their rates 112%. But as we sit here today, OSEA's rates are higher than MSD's rates today by 62%. Okay, and during that time, we've been as much as 78% higher than their rates, and that's where we at. It's just historic fact is where it is. The other page is projection, and its real assumption is that the OSEA's rates only go up 5% a year after if we don't move forward with this deal, then we know we have to build the pipe for Ash Avenue, and then we would have to have a CapEx increase of $6, and then I'm just assuming a 5% increase. At the same time showing that MSD's rates are going to go up 6.9%. It's just, those are the assumptions. Then I have what we've agreed to. in this ILA, MSD/OCA, where basically the rates are frozen and then they go down in 2022, and then they go up 5% a year until they equate. Those are the assumptions. They're just to show you numbers. And basically, at the bottom, I said, you know, the next 5 years, the average OCO user will save $1,400. Now, that doesn't sound like all that much, but that's more than, like saying in the next 5 years that if you stay with OCA versus MSD, you're going to get over a year's worth of free sewer use. In other words, because it's about 14 months less compared to what an OCA customer is paying today. So it's just information that, you know, one's historic fact, the other one's projection based on fairly reasonable assumptions. So that's all those attempt to do.
All right, thank you. You know, maybe before we go to the fiscal court question, I'm going to ask Mr. Parrott and his team to, if you would like to address the questions that were raised in the open comment about how are you going to handle the books to make sure that Oldham County residents are not responsible for Jefferson County debt.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Judge, and Stan, and Horace from OCA, and also the rest of the magistrates for the opportunity to be here. As the judge mentioned, this is something that we've been looking at and working on, I guess you could say collaboratively, for about 11 months. And so the fact that we're actually here is, I think, maybe historical, but something that I think is worthy of all the work that we've done to date. The comment that I heard regarding the allocation of debt and to make sure that there's no subsidizing either party. Early on in the discussions that came up, and we have made it very clear throughout that Oldham County customers would not be subsidizing Jefferson County customers, and Jefferson County customers would not be subsidizing Oldham County customers as it relates to any debt allocation. And so, as you all know, under this particular ILA, we will be assuming $14 million of outstanding debt. And the most of that debt is going to be carried by the rate that is currently in place by the Oldham County customers. When you think about the assets that ultimately could benefit Oldham County, obviously we have our Floyd's Fork wastewater treatment plant and our Hyde Creek wastewater treatment plant that ultimately could be some benefit to the Oldham County drainage area. So we would have to look at, from a flow perspective, if we ever were treating flows at those respective facilities, then there would be some debt allocation from either Floyd's Fork or from Hyde Creek. But at this point, the only thing that we projected, particularly with the Ash Avenue elimination, that would be the only drainage area right now that is coming to an existing wastewater plant at MSD. That being said, any debt that we have at any other plant in our system, or any future debt that we have for any part of the system that isn't serving Oldham County, would not be allocated to any Oldham County resident. The other thing I want to point out is, as you know, MSD, we actually provide 3 distinct services to customers in Jefferson County, which is stormwater, flood protection, and wastewater treatment. This particular ILA is specific to Oldham County being provided only wastewater treatment services. So any charges in our rate base that are attributed to stormwater or flood protection would not be allocated to any Oldham County residents. As far as debt that would be issued in the future, just kind of give you a little background on how we do debt right now. Obviously, you know that we have the route of being able to issue bonds to be able to pay for our debt. We also have the ability to go through the KIA loan process and have the SRF low-interest loans that are available to every county and utility. And we also have taken on what we call a process called the issuance of commercial paper. And what we do is that we issue commercial paper, we pay for that, and then once we get to a certain level of commercial paper, then we issue a bond to expire that commercial paper that we issue. So I think going forward with the Oldham County District, to answer a question that came up on how debt is going to be handled, I would see that, if there's a specific project that is in Oldham County, we could go and get an SRF loan, or we could use the commercial paper specific to that project, and then particularly when that commercial paper, being able to wrap that commercial paper into a larger debt issue is actually going to be beneficial to the Oldham County customers, because we're going to get a lower interest rate, and the cost allocation is going to be based on economies of scale. It's going to be cheaper for the Oldham County customers in the future. So that's kind of how our debt process is set up.
All right. And then in regard to the Metro Council controlling rates.
Yeah, the deal that we have laid out right now, assuming over the $14 million in outstanding debt, the first few years, obviously, unfortunately, because of that contract, the BLE contract, we were not able to lower rates sooner rather than later. But I think it's projected that after the BLE contract expires, we'll be able to reduce rates by $10 a month. Rates would not go above 5% a year thereafter until we equalize, which I think is projected around fiscal year 31. We know that currently our board, MSD board, has the statutory limit of raising rates up to 6.9%. Projection-wise, we don't think that, at least for through the fiscal year 31 period, that is going to go above the 6.9%. Early on, when this issue came up, I think there was some discussion about, do we want to have some type of advisory consent or advisory process to update the fiscal court, not only on what the rates are, but what type of capital projects that we're doing in their respective areas. That's something that I would envision that we would do, is be able to, at your pleasure, or how frequently you would want that, an update on what we're doing with the capital program and what we're doing with any projected rate increases. So whether that's a formal process or whether it's more of an informal process, that's how I envision making sure that what we're doing and what the cost would be going forward.
Right. And we've spoken about an advisory group, or have someone from Oldham County attend fiscal MSD meetings when Oldham County items are on the agenda. We also have representation that we're probably not really cognizant of here, in the sense that the people on the MSD board all represent a specific senatorial district. Oldham County is in Mr. Harris's senatorial district and will continue to be in that senatorial district. So the person on the MSD board actually has some responsibility back to the people in Oldham County, because the entire district covers Oldham County and a lesser part of Jefferson County, actually. But we haven't really had the need to be tuned in on that right at this point. So, all right, now I'd like to open the floor. Bob, did you want to?
Yeah, from what Mr. Kaiser said, and I've heard Mr. Pratt, first off, well, thank y'all for coming today. I mean, I think this is going to be change the whole game. Let's do it. Sewer rates. I'm the guy from Glen Oaks. I'm the troubled child. What I wanted to say was, I've heard that a couple different words used, like taxpayer, citizen. This only pertains to people that are subscribers to the sewer system. So when the Oldham mayor puts something out there, I don't want to see the public thinking, well, look what they're doing to us. This is only the people that are in this, attached to the sewer line. So using tax, I think he said that all the citizens, all the taxpayers in Oldham County, it's got nothing to do with taxpayers. It's just the subscribers to these, this is only affecting the subscribers to the sewers. We have to make everybody understand this. And as you know, how many people do we have in the OCA?
Roughly
It was
6,000.
a little over 6,000.
So this agreement only affects the 6,000 people there. And-
1/10. 1/10 of what we do.
Okay, and then the ones that over my area. So this is a monumental thing, but it's affecting the small groups. So I hope that the general public doesn't, I hope they understand that this is only for, if you're not on sewer, don't worry about it. Not affecting you today, it will affect you sometime down the road. But I saw 2031 on there. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, that one okay? I'm not going to be around. So.
Well, and I won't try to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think that assumption is based on the 6.9 increase. Some people have expressed a concern that, well, what if it's more than that or whatever? Realistically speaking, Oldham County, the average per capita income among our ratepayers is likely to be significantly higher than the Jefferson County people. So raises that go in Jefferson County are filtered through a lot of people who have a much lower average per capita income in Oldham County. So I think certain rates going with people, Metro Council has to be responsible to that and realize that people in certain parts of the city that are served by MSD, would find 6.9 probably to be pretty repressive. So anything higher than that might be create some kind of real strong backlash.
Well, I tell you, we have not been given a blank check, and it's going to be very difficult to get anything above 6.9.
Right. That's all right. Anybody else have any other questions here, Mr. Harrison?
Thank you, Judge. Not really a question, but, as a surveyor, I deal with numbers all the time. I deal with exhibits all the time, court testimony, planning commission presentation. So I got to wondering, how does this usage in Oldham County really compare to Jefferson County? So I developed this little graph based on saying we got 6,000 users here and we got 220,000 in Jefferson County. We would represent, combined with MSD, 2.717%. Well, what is that? That's a number. Okay. So this chart with the red line representing MSD and the little blue square over here is OSEA, and Mr. Kaiser needs to see this. That's how we compare it to MSD. And if you want to put it in more realistic terms, let's say that MSD represents the distance from the courthouse to St. Louis. And we're going to get in a car that has enough gas in it to get to 2.717% of MSD on the way to St. Louis. So we go out here at the corner, get in the car, go down to 71, drive down to 71. How far do you get? You get to the ramp at Crestwood, but you don't get off the ramp. You run out of gas before you get off the ramp. And if you can only purchase gas enough to take you that 2.717% of the traffic of the distance to St. Louis, you'd have to make 36 stops in order to get there. We are a very, very small minnow in a great big pond. And I think MSD is showing a lot of professionalism and graciousness to include us in all of this the way they have. Because based on the numbers, we're not even a blip on the radar screen. But I appreciate everything that MSD has done. And as some of you know, I've had experiences going back 30 plus years with MSD. I go back to times John Bike and Susie Comstock. And I've had nothing but good experience with MSD. And I trust you guys. Thank you.
Right, and this, question was raised earlier before the meeting. This has nothing to do with stormwater. This is strictly sewers. And we have our own stormwater district, which will continue to function, and is not in the same economic position as OSEA, because the stormwater district, our stormwater district covers everybody in the county except Peewee Valley. where this only covered a fraction of the people. Magistrate Lycon.
Thank you, Judge. I just had one comment to make to see if y'all can talk about this, but there was a consent decree, I think, on Jefferson County because of the combined sanitary stormwater sewer. And I think a lot of citizens out here are concerned that they're going to get dragged into that. The first figure was 500 million, the last one I heard was 800 million. So we want to make sure that we're not paying for that.
Yeah, and our capital plan is quite large, and some of it is mandated by consent decree. But as I mentioned before, any debt that we have for the consent decree project would not be allocated to Oldham County customers unless there was a future order or an order at the Floyd's Fork facility or the High Creek facility that ended up taking on any flow from Oldham County. So there would be no, I guess you could see there would be a firewall that would make sure that we would treat that as a separate enterprise going forward. Likewise, I think there's orders that Oldham County has that I guess we would be taking on that we want to make sure that, Jefferson County customers aren't subsidizing that border with the state, those types of improvements. So I think we have a common interest to make sure that there's no allocation or subsidization, regardless if it's consent decree related or just normal capital related. Thank you.
I'd like to extend my comments and my compliments a minute ago and tell you how much I appreciate your patience, because we have a tendency to ask repetitive questions. And I applaud you because you're giving us the same answer every time we ask the same question. And you never seem to get upset or impatient with us because we continue asking the same question. So kudos to you for that. I appreciate it. That's professionalism.
Magistrate Logston.
I have no problem with this. The only thing I have a problem with is that we do not have any representation for the citizens of Oldham County. And I know we've discussed this already, but this is my big problem with the whole thing. We have a planning and zoning commission that we put different people from City of Crestwood, Pee Valley, LaGrange, also everybody will have some kind of say in what goes on with planning and zoning. When we do this, the citizens of Oldham County will have no say. Now you can say, well, they don't have it on the local water company, they don't have it on the LG&E. Well, that was before this is taken over by MSD. My only concern is there is absolutely no representation from the citizens of Oldham County on what happens to them in the local utility. And I brought this up before, it's not anything new. That is my only problem. I understand it's going to save the taxpayers, the sewer rates money. I get all that. I just worry about, right now you say there's only 6,000, let's round it off, 6,000 people on but Oldham County's going to continue to grow. And it's going to grow, probably going to grow faster than Jefferson County is. So eventually in the year 2031, I mean, it could be one of the biggest areas that growth for MSD, and Oldham County has no say on what happens to the rates or anything else.
Well, I think that goes back to what I mentioned about the senatorial districts. We have actually not had to have a need to have representation in there, even though we did through the senatorial district. That is our, if you want to say, our representative on their board is appointed now by Ernie Harris. Or it could be, I don't know, we don't know. But that's how it's supposed to work. Each district in senatorial district touching Jefferson County, but in his case, the majority of his district is Oldham County. So he will be, and they have agreed to an advisory group, and I understand what you're saying there, but when we're, I don't know how we could, if we're 2% of, we can't, how many people could we have on a 6-person board? We wouldn't.
That's today.
Huh?
That's for today.
Oh, my goodness.
We're going to grow.
We're going to grow, but if we doubled in the next 10 years, to 12,000 customers, we'd only be 4% of their base. So in a way, you can't really expect them to give us 2% of the people an equal vote with the others that have each represent 12% of the people or something like that.
Well, but let's just use wild numbers here. If there's 5 members and you had 1 person on the board, it's not going to matter if that person votes against it anyway. At least you have somebody representing Oldham County on it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, what would their purpose be?
Sorry?
What would their purpose be? One voice. What would the purpose be? What can they do?
What's the purpose of fiscal court? It represents the people.
That's why I did this chart. I thought that would have some meaning to you, to understand and see an illustration of how small we are.
We are small right now. We're not, y'all are looking at today. I'm looking in the future.
Well, you're never gonna have an Oklahoma out here. You're never gonna have a PRP out here. You're never gonna have Dixie Highway out here. We're just not geared for it. It's not
I'm
gonna
just
happen.
giving you my concern.
Understand?
Magistrate Likens.
Yes, sir. Can you all tell me when the last time that you all had a significant, I guess, rate increase? Because I remember seeing it in the paper. I thought it was more in Jefferson County. I mean, those people don't stand for much of a one-time raise.
Well, I can tell you that it was probably, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 12, 15 years ago. Yeah, so that's when the consent decree started, and ever since then, we've averaged right at about 5.9% or more. But, yeah, we did talk about the potential of having a 20% increase 3 years ago, and it was dead on arrival.
Magistrate Greenlaw.
Thank you, Judge. For the record, how much debt does OSEA have, and how much are they going to assume of that debt?
They're assuming all of the debt.
And how much is that number?
I don't have it.
It's close to 30 million.
It's about 27, 28 million.
Some of that is loans and some of it is.
The GO bonds, is
GO
what
bonds.
you are willing to assume that.
Is there assumption of the GO bonds, or is it just payment of GO bonds?
Assumption. It's assumption of debt. And my understanding is yesterday the KIA board approved tentatively approved the KIA assumption of the debt by MSD. The GO bonds, some of them cannot be paid off. There's requirements stuff. So they're assuming taking over the payment of it. OSEA makes the payments today. They will take over that payment, and fiscal court will still be the fiscal court's bond, just like they are today. That will not change until maybe sometime down the future if they decide to refile or take them out and pay them off. But that's not being assumed. It's just assumed that they will run their course. They're pretty low interest rates, like the last one, the GO 2017, that 2.08. But it could be that outlying bonds, the last 5 years are in the 3%. It could come to a case where 10 years from now, they may want to just go ahead and take them out to save some money. Up front, we've got some below 2%. So nothing's going to change there. However, that's the next part of the asset purchase agreement is the assumption agreement. And that's also something that I came to terms late yesterday with the agreement. Now, the next point, well, I'll be giving it to our county attorney for review. Basically, we're in a pretty good position. We will have priority in the scheme of things. We will not have the priority of the commitment to the senior debt and the sub-senior or whatever. There's different debts. But we will have priority in the revenue funds. And so we'll have, the revenues of the MSD will pay those bonds, and they've agreed to step in and make the payments to the paying agent, just like OSEA has been doing. So.
Magistrate Tice.
And I'm going to ask this, and that's off of Steve's question. When I heard you, Mr. Barrett, you referred to $14 million worth of bonds.
That was the loans. And then
That was the loans that are directly to OSEA, is that correct?
That's the GO bonds, yeah.
Okay. All right. and that's what I was trying to say, is, or trying to ask, what part, how many millions of dollars are we on, that we've obligated the court and all the citizens of Oldham County that, by having the GO bonds back in the sewer district? Is that the other 16 million? Or is
That's what he's referring to.
that 14 is that?
Because the
And-
KIA debt has been OCA, and fiscal court's not been on that or exposed to that, or the taxpayers. It's been the ratepayers exposed on that.
Okay.
So this is, was strictly the 14 million is what we're talking about, is the Oldham County fiscal debt, issued debt that we're on, that we put the tax revenues of the county behind, the general obligation bonds, okay?
Perfect. So you're going to pick up the other 16 that OC already has, plus guarantee the 14 does?
That is correct.
Thank you, I understand that now. Thank you. Got it.
Commissioner Harrison.
If MSD is going to pick up all of our debt, what, does anything else matter? I mean, debt line, I don't care how much it is, or how little it is, or what you're going to do with anything else. You're taking it away from us, right? It's that simple. Thank you.
Commissioner Hawkins.
The debt name doesn't transfer to HUD, correct?
The fiscal court debt name would stay the same. We would have an assistance agreement to make the debt service payments, but the bonds would remain in the fiscal court's name. The KIA debt would be in our name once we assume.
Okay. So if MSD were to go bankrupt, then we would be back responsible for it. Just saying.
For the fiscal court debt.
That's right.
Right, and, you know, and just FYI, in those resolutions and revenue, we all talked about 6.9. In those revenue resolutions, one of the requirements is that they set rates at a level to make 110%, cover 110% of those estimated payments, which include operating expenses, which will include the payment on this GO debt. That opens up another big can of worms, because if the council, MSD, the Metro Council doesn't set rates to cover the estimated thing, then something's wrong somewhere, and I don't know what will happen. That'd turn into a big attorney mess if that was to happen, but.
Well, we have existing bond covenants that we must maintain a certain level of debt service coverage. We must maintain a certain level of cash on hand. And we get evaluated every year by Moody's and S&P. And, you know, if we don't meet those criteria, we risk getting a bond downgrade, which obviously is going to be very costly for us. So we have very tight financial metrics that will ensure that we will never receive a downgrade from Moody's or S&P.
Commissioner Light.
One last question, and that's to Mr. Carter. Can we let somebody assume something without knowing a price on it, on what the assets are for the citizens of Oldham County, without being duly, are we being negligent by not having a price on what we're letting somebody assume? Because we're giving away assets of the county.
You talking about OCA's?
Yes, I'm talking, yes.
Those are not owned by the county, they're owned by OCA. OCA is a
Part of Oldham County.
no, it's not. It's not a political subdivision of Oldham County. It's I forgot what they call it, but it's.
SPG.
No, it's special district. It's not a taxing district. And it supports itself by fees on its customers. And so all the debt that's being paid off is signed off on by OCA. But apparently, the county has seen fit to guarantee some of those bonds. So if OCA went under, then the county would be responsible for the 14 million. But that's an issue that has been addressed by the Kentucky Supreme Court, which says that special districts like a sewer district is not a political subdivision of the state or the county.
I just wanted to ask that question.
Right.
So that's an issue with OC,
But
not with us.
From an accountant's answer is, one of the things when you value a company, I used to buy companies, is you look at cash flow. It really comes down to cash flow. Well, when you're a nonprofit, you want to make sure your cash flow is just enough. And our rates are set on, and so basically the debt on the books, we have to generate enough cash to pay for the operations and pay the debt. And we don't make a profit per se, because again, we want to keep rates as low as possible and whatnot. So in effect, the debt values what the sewer district is worth.
Mansion Hawkins.
I'll chime in here. As you know, we went over this for an hour, at least at Tuesday's fiscal court meeting, at utilities before that, and nearly every utility meeting over the last 10 months, and including special utility meetings that we've had. And asked in our MOU that we agreed upon was for local control of rate increases. So under this agreement, we would lose local control of being able to weigh in on future rate increases, and the power to have a tangible recourse in the form of a vote is not a privilege that I would like to take away from our rate-paying citizens. If we were to raise it to an unsuitable amount for them, they could vote us out. And I know we have senatorial representation. However, our 6,200 ratepayers would not have a say in voting, in the form of voting out a Metro City Council member who could vote a rate to be unsuitable for them. And so I'm not in favor of this agreement as it stands.
Well, I'd like to just respond to what you said here. Number one, I've been here, I guess, 12 years, 13 years. We've done nothing but raise rates for people. The only response we've had from any ratepayers is stop raising my rates, okay? But yet you saw by the information that Mr. Clark presented earlier here that our rates since 2011 are almost 100% higher in increases than what MSD has done. What the people of this county want, who are paying this, is relief. They want it to stop. They want it to, we tried our best to get it lowered now. We've got a freeze. Freeze is absolutely appropriate. In addition, you've heard us talk about the bonds, okay? The bonds demand that rates be enough to pay the interest on those. If you do not raise the rates enough to pay the interest, you could, I assume, have a default on your bonds. And then it wouldn't just be the rate, it'd be, 14 million, 27 million. The rates are not whatever a group of, let's say, not uneducated, but let's say people who are not sophisticated in the techniques of these organizations deciding, well, you're going to give you this or we're going to give you that. A certain amount has to be given to maintain the thing, to keep the bonds from defaulting or having the Moody's and Standard & Poor's suddenly start downgrading you. I mean, there's a whole cascade of things that could happen. So I understand what you're saying, but I honestly believe that our ability to meet and discuss with MSD, our operation is going to be separate here. It's not a, everything's not going into the jar and we're just in the mix. There's separate accounting going on here regarding what goes on in our county. And but as I say, what I've heard and what others have been on the fiscal court as longer than I have has been stop raising our rates. Why are these rates going so high? And you can see that if we don't do this, they're going to continue to escalate. And with part of the county already in the MSD service area, we heard Mayor Dybel say that He's been with them for 20-plus years, had no complaint, was happy with what happened there. We have with Range Utilities here is another independent operator with some people. I don't see where the growth in our county is going to come fast enough. That we have a couple of spots now, but one of the two main things going on right now, one of them would be in this area, but another is in LaGrange. I understand what you're saying, and I do believe that we would be safeguarded here. And I think the ratepayers feel that way. Since this has come out over the last 10 or 11 months, there have been several stories in the paper, it's been on the internet, word gets around. I mean, we all know that people talk over the back fence. I haven't had a single customer from the sewer district call and tell me that they don't want to do this. I've had a number of them say, yeah, it can't happen soon. So I understand your concern, but the experience I have sitting here as many years as I have is that this is not going to be a problem.
May I reply to that?
Sure.
I think the rate freeze for 2 years is great. I think reducing it to 76.92 is even better. It's after that I really would prefer that ratepayers have a recourse.
Measure Harris.
I have quite a few customers on the system today, and most of my customers are residents. Sorry, not customers.
Okay.
Sorry, thanks, Albert. I have residents, constituents, whatever term you want to use, and they are paying $86. They're paying $80 plus a month for sewer service. Here's how I look at this. Mr. Hawkins, you're right. It could be a better deal with representation. I will agree with that. But it's the deal that we have. It's not like being able to go buy something else. If I want to go buy a new Ford or Chevy or Mazda, whatever, I've got several different dealerships and places that I can go to buy. There's not anybody else out there that wants to buy this system. And there's not another MSD, or there's not another sewer system. We started this uncharted territory, but I know that the magistrates in Bullitt County, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going down the same path with maybe the same level of trepidation that we are, because it's uncharted territory. But I think that it makes sense for the ratepayers of Osceola. Mayor Dibble, most of us in this room, I'll use the phrase, got beat up by him, and I mean, it is a joke, but he was very impressed and very happy with the service that he received from MSD for his people in Crestwood. There are some tweaks that would be nice to make change, but we always don't get what we want. I mean, if my daughter were here, she'd start tapping me on the shoulder and say, "Go ahead and tell him, Dad." You know, I tell her all the time, you want to play that song, you can't always get what you want. You can try sometime, you know. But again, I think we're getting a good deal. I think that Magic Harrison, you brought up a great point about the percentage that we are to MSD. I think we need to keep that in mind, folks. We are going to help MSD. MSD is going to help us. But the economies of scale that we're going to see, I think, are higher than what what some people in this room are giving credit for. We can't treat the wastewater. Osceola can't treat the wastewater for the same dollars that MSD can. It's a fact. It's a piece of economics. It's quantity that is being treated. I would like to say that let's move on. I don't know that we're going to change anybody's vote of the 8 magistrates that are here, and let's just get this done and move forward.
You know, this is a question, rhetorical in a way, but how do you know how many additional requirements EPA is going to put on you in the next 10 years? it seems like every time the sewer district turns around, they're dropping something new on it. As far as what the effluent has to be, the level of phosphates or anything else. But we don't know what that's gonna be.
No, we don't.
That's totally out of your control.
It's out of our control, but we stay engaged at the state level and national level to try to influence what EPA is doing in Washington. Two big things that are coming probably in the next 20 years, nutrient removal and phosphorus nutrient removal at our wastewater treatment plants. And so, but we don't know when that's going to happen. So we have to live with what the current permit requirements are, whether it be a plant in Oldham County or a plant in Jefferson County. We have the existing permits with the state that we have to comply with.
So you're essentially year in and year out shooting at a moving target.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes a target that's not there yet, you're still trying to shoot at it.
Yes, sir.
When it does come up, maybe you hit it. It's kind of like getting a flu shot. I mean, that doesn't mean you're not going to get the flu, because the flu shots, particularly the strain of flu they think might hit here this year. If they get it wrong, we get the flu.
I have one question, just to clarify, for you, if you don't mind. So is MSD going to maintain a separate accounting system for Jefferson County and the rates you receive from Jefferson County customers, and a separate accounting for the rates that you receive from Oldham County?
Yes, sir. We will have a separate enterprise system for not only Oldham County, but as you mentioned, if we end up with Bullitt County or any other county, we're going to have to treat it as separate enterprise funds. But we'll be managing it with, the same staff.
So you won't use any monies from Oldham County customers to subsidize Jefferson?
Yeah, I think I made that in my opening comments.
Well, I mean, they said you had an accounting system, but I can't find it in the agreement if it's going to be separate. It's not in there, that I can find.
Well, they're gonna have it in the audit.
Yes.
Should it be in writing?
Pardon?
Should it be in writing?
I don't know. I mean, you can't get everything in writing. I'm taking, we're recording these come to this meeting. They won't be able to determine our rates separately.
We have an accounting system that the utility uses that could probably set up different, separate enterprises. We're not going to have 3 different accounting systems. We're going to have one accounting system and treat each entity as a separate enterprise. Hopefully that answers your question.
Magistrate Guy.
I'm with Magistrate Townsend. I think we've worked this around long enough. It all goes back to one thing that the judge said a minute ago about the per capita income. In my district, it basically affects about 6 different subdivisions. And looking at those 6 subdivisions, I did this last night because I keep track of, I watch the people moving in and out to keep an active list of who actually lives there. The average home in my district on the low end of the value is $130,000. The high end is about $760,000. And that's a big spread of per capita income. But what we're talking about today, what Master Hawkins said, she's concerned when it hits 77. I don't know what people, I haven't financed a house in years, but I know it hasn't changed that much. But when you get somebody that's at a $130,000 home, and just assuming they paid 20% down and 80% and financed for 30 years, the number they're paying now to OCA is a huge number on their monthly charges. And this is not where, I'm not worried about representation. Didn't you say this was based on 6% when it said projected up here? And you're not getting much more than 6.9%? I don't know what's going to happen in 2021 or 31. But I know that the relief, and as the judge said, I get this my second biggest complaint is the sewer rates, because they're pretty horrific compared to what they're doing over. And MSD's got the sewer rates they got today because they have economics of scale. It's just that simple. If you look at the map that on the appendix that I guess you all provided, it came from Logic, they have basically take Crestwood and LaGrange out of the mix. You've only got really 3 different areas in Oldham County that have sewer service, either through OC, and MSD. and the rest of it's all basically undeveloped property. You gotta fill in on those spots to get that economics of scale. And I hate to break the news to everybody, but those spots not gonna get filled with this group watching it get done. Because it's gonna take a long, long time for that to happen, so I'm ready to.
Did you call the question then?
I'll call for a question, yes.
Second.
All right, does anybody else have a pertinent question?
I just want to respond to Mr. Logson's concerns about representation.
You know, I don't mean to cut you off, John, but okay, you got a legal question or?
No, I'm just going to tell you that
Okay.
Oldham County does have representation because they cannot expand sewers in Oldham County without fiscal court's permission. That's the reason I rewrote paragraph 10.1.7.
Question been called?
All right, moved and seconded. I ask clerk to call the roll, please.
There's actually not a motion on the floor, though.
Oh, I think there is.
No, there was a first and a second.
I don't
I'll make that motion.
Subject-
I just called it 10.
Well, you didn't have a
Discussion,
motion
we'll
to
vote.
consider this agreement? What was the motion?
Yeah.
It was 20 to
Yeah,
discuss.
we did. We had a motion and a second to do the debate. I'm calling for the question in debate.
So that ends debate.
No.
To end debate.
The end debate, yeah.
All
Made a
right.
motion to
All
end
those in
debate.
favor, end debate.
Who was
To end
second?
debate,
She
all
was
right.
second.
Okay, question to end debate. Call the roll, please.
This is the end debate, not voting on the motion.
Yeah,
Magister Tice,
yeah, let's end. Yes.
Magister Greenwell,
Yes.
Magister Hawkins,
Yes.
Magister Logston,
Yes.
Magister Lankins,
Yes.
Magister Harrison,
Yes.
Magister Helms,
Yes.
Magister Dye,
Yes.
Judge Bill.
Yes. Motion carries, 9-0. All right. Now we'll move to the question about approving the interlocal agreement. Call roll.
Somebody
Somebody
needs
needs
to
to
make
make
a
a
motion.
motion.
I thought we already had that.
No, the motion was for discussion.
I'll make the motion for the approval of the ILA that's been presented to us.
Point of order. We have a motion on the floor and a second to consider this. That's why we went directly to debate.
That's what I thought.
The
Dave.
That's what
discussion.
the wording was.
Huh?
That's what the wording was, to consider.
The motion was.
To consider,
have
yes.
discussion.
So I think you vote that up, vote it down, that's all we gotta do.
Yeah, right now, we're just, we're
There is a
looking at
motion on the
a
floor.
motion on the floor.
Okay. I'll withdraw my comments.
Okay. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
And this is for the ILA.
Yes. That's what I asked for that at the
Yes,
beginning.
very beginning.
And
Discuss
Judge,
it.
is this with the modifications?
Yes, right.
From-
Modification as approved by Mr. Carter.
Magister Helms,
Yes.
Magister Hawkins,
No.
Magister Dye,
Yes.
Magister Logston,
Yes.
Magister Tice,
Yes.
Magister Lankins,
Yes.
Magister Harrison,
Yes.
Magister Greenwell,
No.
and Judge Vogel.
Yes. Motion carries 7-2.
We save the motion for a minute, so.
So the motion was to approve the interlocal agreement as
Actually,
presented.
we consider for approval.
Right?
Consider for approval.
Yeah. What's that?
We should write something in, there's not going to be an approval because there was no motion to approve.
Well, that was certainly the intention that I had when I opened the discussion, that we
Can we
are
just
here
have-
today
can we
to
just have
consider approving this interlocal agreement, not just to talk about it.
I'm just telling you,
But, okay,
you all go ahead and do what you're
Well,
going
do
to
we
do.
want, do you think we should take another vote?
The motion that you made was.
Okay.
I'll make the motion
Let's,
to approve it as revised.
Okay,
Second.
all right, moved and seconded. Please take the motion to accept the interlocal agreement as revised and presented, so we'll take another vote on it. As long as that's that. All right.
Magister Logston,
Yes.
Magister Helms,
Yes.
Magister Harrison,
Yes.
Magister Lankins,
Yes.
Magister Tice,
Yes.
Magister Greenwell,
No.
Magister Hawkins,
No.
Magister Dye,
Yes.
Judge Vogel.
Yes. Motion to accept the interlocal agreement is presented, carried 7-2. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, well, you got nothing, you know, finish with your agenda?
There is no need to discuss item B on the agenda.
Oh, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
He was using that as a hammer.
And thank you all for coming out today.